everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Every week, photographers meet here to connect, inspire, and create. If you'd like to join us live, you'll find the schedule for upcoming sessions on my website at lindanickell.com. Every week, a guest shares their photography tips and insight into their creative journeys, and they inspire us to look at a subject just a little differently. Tonight's guest is Essdras Suarez. As a photojournalist, Esdras' work took him to over 60 countries to cover assignments, including the war in Iraq, the 2003 Columbia shuttle disaster, and the 2004 Indonesia tsunami. His photos from the Columbine High School massacre in 1999 and the Boston Marathon bombings in 2003 garnered him not one, but 2 Pulitzer Prizes. Esdras' photographs have been featured in notable publications that include National Geographic, Time Magazine, the New York Times, and many other world-renowned publications. As a freelance photographer, Esdras specializes in documentary, travel, and editorial assignments. As an educator, he leads travel and adventure workshops and offers portfolio reviews and mentorship. In tonight's presentation, More Than a Canal, Panama, a Country of Wonders, Esdras invites us to take a visual journey through Panama, a treasure trove of biodiversity that hosts an incredible variety of plant and animal species. He'll touch on the cultural and modern contrasts of Panama, a country that is home to 7 indigenous tribes, each with its own unique culture and traditions. And he'll whisk us through Panama City, a modern and bustling metropolis filled with skyscrapers and thriving urban development, in contrast to the traditional countryside, where life has been conducted for generations in picturesque villages with artisanal markets and a slower pace of living. You can connect with Esdras through his website, emsphotoadventures.com. And if you're on Instagram, you can find him at ems_photo_adventures. I'll link his information to the show notes below. Welcome back to the Happiness Hour, Esdras.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you for having me. Thank you. I was very happy when you asked me to do Panama. That she didn't mention, but my wife and I moved back to Panama after 37, almost 38 years in the States, about 10 months ago. And one of the reasons why we moved back is because Panama has so much to offer. If I ask you guys about bird photography in Latin America, you're going to think of Costa Rica. And that's perfect because Costa Rica invented ecotourism. And they have about 50 years of marketing in Panama, but Panama has about close to 1,000 species of birds. And I'm not a bird photographer. I've gotten better at it because it's there. It's obvious. I mean, I can walk outside my house and I can get great bird photography. So what I'm about to show you is kind of a mishmash of all things Panama, just so you get a sense. And as the title says, Panama is more than a canal. The first 10 slides or so are about the canal, because you cannot talk about Panama without talking about the canal. That'll be quick and easy, and then we'll go to other things. So just to make sure that we're talking about Panama, the country, just so you guys know, it's the tiny piece of land that sits between the Americas, North America, Central America, tiny Panama, and then South America. Okay, that's us. It's tiny. There's only about 4.3 million Panamanians, and that includes the ones that are scattered all over the world. So there's not that many people. However, we do have the honor of having had the first transcontinental railway in the Americas. It was actually finished in 1855. It took the lives of about 5,000 to 10,000 workers. They don't quite have that exactly figured out, but to this day, the same tracks are still being used in what is known as the dry canal. The dry canal is, for ships to go through the Panama Canal, it saves them time, but it doesn't really, I don't know if it saves them money. It just saves them time. And but a lot of shipping companies, what they do is they bring their goods to a port in the Caribbean side. Everything gets offloaded, put into the railway line, and it crosses over and it gets delivered in the Pacific or vice versa. So that is known as the dry canal, which is still used to this day. Now, Panama Canal was opened its doors in 19, I guess it's locks in 1914 with technology that they invented in the 19th century. And interestingly enough, if you come to Panama and you go visit the Miraflores locks, you will actually see technology that was invented in the 19th century and is still working today. They just don't make things like that anymore. The bridge that you see back there are three bridges over the Panama Canal. The one back there is the oldest one. It's called the Bridge of the Americas. By the way, because I know that all of you guys are photographers, every once in a while, I'm gonna give you tips on how to make the photos more interesting. If you come here, you're gonna see a lot of ships going through the canal. But this is what is known as a keyhole approach. I actually climb up a hill, hiked up, just so I could find a vantage viewpoint so I could get this. So the photo becomes much more interesting than just a ship crossing the canal. So that's just juxtaposing elements, and it's something that we should learn to do. Now, this is a more straightforward photo, but it has a value because this is the narrowest part of the Panama Canal. It's called Gillard's Cut, and it gives you a sense of how narrow it really truly is at its narrowest point. Then they expanded it some years back because the ships were getting too big. I got lucky enough. I got to come to Panama while it was being expanded. So I visited the construction and it was amazing. It was a forest of cranes when they were building that. And now this would be the third bridge of the canal on the Caribbean side. And this is basically the size of the ships that go through the new set of locks. These things are massive. I think the highest capacity of containers on the biggest ship is 22,000 containers. That is an insane amount of containers. This ship that you see here is the third largest that can cross the new sets of locks in Panama. And that's a new set of locks. That's the name of it. And I'm about to be done with the Panama Canal because, like I said, you can't talk about Panama without talking about the canal, but we want to move on to other things. Again, on this photo, the reason why it looks so cool is simply because the optics that I chose, as you know, telephoto lenses tend to create a pancake effect. If you were to go there, this is not what you would see with your eyes, but I know one of the things that we do as photographers is that of trying to captivate the eye of the viewer. That we usually do by using new angles, new perspectives. All we got to do is it's kind of trick the brain of the viewer into thinking that they're seeing new information when in reality it is known information but presented in a new way. That's what I do. Big ship again. Now this is Panama City. Again, most people don't know that Panama actually is a metropolis. I think it ranks 13 in the world as far as skyscrapers. The big tower that you see in the back used to be called the Trump Tower. Then he got into trouble and they removed the name, but it's still the tallest point in Panama. And I apologize, I don't know why it's not filling the frame, but it doesn't happen all the time. We do have a lot of, well, not a lot, but we are kind of set up to receive cruise liners, and we have a port out there, but Panama is not known for that kind of stuff. It's more people that come to Panama, they either just cross the canal, they go through the canal, or they might actually come and visit. I advise you to visit because you'll be missing on a lot. I'm going to turn off the light on me because you don't need to see me anymore. This is about the photos. Again, this is another view of, just to show, it's basically the other side of that skyline that I showed you. And this is actually just behind my house. I live in an area right next to the water. And this is how it looks. This is the view from my balcony, this beautiful park. And sometimes in the morning, I just wake up early, go out with my telephoto lens and just look for birds because they're there. And ocean birds are just on the other side of those buildings. And that's what you're looking at here. You get all sorts of birds. You get ibises, frigate birds, skimmers. Don't ask me the names again because I am not that good at all the names yet. I'm still learning. What I want you to get is that in the middle of all of this is within 3/4 of a mile. There's this beautiful mall that is super modern. So Panama has this beautiful dichotomy where you can be, in the wilderness and you kind of turn around, walk 10 minutes in one direction, and you're pretty much in this kind of surrounding. during the summer, I made it a point to walk the dry bed. It's basically shoreline, and those are the buildings where I live. And it's a bit of a hike, but people used to tell me, "You nuts, don't go out there because you can sink and whatever." So, but it was worth it because one day I walked out there and I encountered the carcass of a big turtle that had gotten killed by the propeller of a boat, and it just made for an amazing photo. What I want you to realize about this photo is that it actually was made with my phone. And I had three cameras on me on that day. Hold on, the lights went out here and I cannot even find the button of the computer for some reason. So let me turn this back on again. Okay, so the point is I had three cameras on me and I made this phone photo. To me was the best. It's a panel shot. And phones are amazing. As much as I love cameras and as much gear as I have, I just went to the States for a day to pick up a new camera. I really truly believe that eventually phones are gonna take the place of cameras. I know it sounds sad, but I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there. And again, this is the wilderness. You are in the middle of a city. All you gotta do is to look down between any crack on the sidewalk and you can find life. Life is always thriving in Panama. So everywhere you look, there's always something to photograph. I know that you guys are like me. You enjoy taking the time to just observe. And Panama is just full of great photos where you just simply observe. Again, Panama is the only country in Central America that has a metro. So that's another telltale that it's a very modern city. Again, at any given day, you can go to just beautiful malls. But again, we are a country in Latin America, therefore we have very heavy colonial influence. So a lot of our buildings in the older parts of the city are colonial style buildings like this church. I think this was Corpus Christi celebrations. And again, I went out with cameras and I believe this to be a phone photo. So when you get to the casco, it was known as the old shell. It's casco antiguo, if you know Spanish. They have kind of revamped the whole area, and it is so visual. My wife and I are about to open a company in about a month. It's going to be called Panama Photo Tours, and one of the things that we do is we do street photography in the casco area because it is so visual. It's you don't have to walk much, and there are all those photos around. So this is it. This is a casco area. From the point of view of as a photographer, and when it comes to storytelling, I don't know if you've noticed that I've been showing you small things, big things, small things, big things, medium things. I am actually varying the approach when I line up the photos because I don't care how good your photos are. If you start presenting photos that are all shot at the same distance, have the same perspective, the viewer will get bored. So you need to keep the viewer engaged by switching from wide angle to tight shots and middle shots. That's how you put a photo essay together. Again, just another showcase to that Panama is indeed a modern city that mixes with the colonial. And as always, whenever possible, we go out when the light is right. But as a photojournalist, a lot of times I didn't have the luxury of going out when the light was right. So nowadays, when I'm on my own, I really enjoy having that luxury. But sometimes I'm on assignment and you just gotta make the best possible photo whatever time of the day you're working. So as you walk around, I do a lot of street photography, which is just simply watching people. And Panama's full of little coffee shops, just like any modern place in the States. But again, you got the beautiful colonial mixture with the modern stuff, the remodel, and I'm not particularly fond of photos without people because to me people are by far the most interesting things that you can photograph. So and I'm a fan of silhouettes. Why? Because the brain knows that there's a person there, therefore it can relate to the scene. It gives you relatability, it gives you a perspective and sense of size, and more importantly, because it's a silhouette, you don't really need to know much about the person, but there's a human in there. That's why I love silhouettes so much. But again, this again, different look at the Casco area. I'm in a hotel. I'm looking out the window of my hotel room. So I'm showing you the area from different aspects because I want you to sort of get a sense of it. And that's what we do when we document a place. We want to capture the essence of a place. Sorry, that photo's repeated. One of the things that I'm a big fan of is paying attention to reflections. Reflections are beautiful. They just open up the possibilities. And sometimes people forget that reflections occur against vertical surfaces, windows of cars, on buses, and that kind of stuff. So if you ever spend time with me, yeah, I'm going to be harping up. Have you found any reflections today? So that's very, very something that you need to be very keen and aware. So Panama has 7 indigenous tribes. I'm only going to show you about 3 of them here. So these are the most famous ones. They're the Guna Yala people. They're the ones who make the molas. The molas are those things that she has in her lap. And because they have been exposed to tourists for the longest time, whenever you photograph them, they want money. So I don't pay them when I photograph them. So sometimes I just establish a conversation with them or I might buy something, but they're actually quite adept at getting paid for getting photographs. So, but because I'm always photographing reality versus pose photos, this is what it is. This is an actual photo from my hotel while I was staying in the Casco area. And they're known because of their beautiful textile creations, the molas, but they're also known because they wear this very elaborate bead work on their arms, the women at least, the women. And they're part of the culture of Panama to the point that their costumes, all the colorful things they wear show up in graffiti. So if you see this, any Panamanian that sees it, oh, that's a Guna woman in the background. So this is to show you that Panama is very, very modern, and it can have also very, very antiquated things like this one. I cannot even fathom how do you work for the power company and you deal with this. I don't know. When I saw this, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, there has got to be a mistake. But this is how it looks in certain parts of Panama. The area that we live it's close to the water on the other end, and they actually had more time to plan this area. So all the wires are underground, and it does make a big difference. It does make a big difference. But this photo is to show you that Panama is not a territory of the U.S., but we pretty much exist because of the U.S. Our culture is pretty much a copy of what goes on in the U.S. This is a school play that my sister asked me to come to because my niece was in it. And this is basically the Addams family. So it's very much up to, whatever you think is going on in the States, we have it here too. And as a photographer, I will go to anything that is visual to photograph it. I just couldn't believe that school plays are as elaborate as this one was. When I was a kid, we certainly didn't do this, but look at the photos, so that was worth it. That was worth it. And Panama has Cuba. If you've ever been to Cuba, you know that Cuba has a malecon, which is this wall in front of the water that goes for 5 miles. Panama doesn't have one that is that long, but we do have Avenida Balboa, and it is a place where people gather. It's a great place for street photography, and it is a place where you can just wait for the light to be nice and photograph people. And people are usually pretty chill and relaxed, and they're okay with being photographed. And I'm very adept at photographing strangers. I don't have any problem with it. In the States, I can tell you the rule of law is people out in the open have no reasonable expectation of privacy. Therefore, you can photograph them. They can scream bloody hell, but you can do it. You have to adhere by social norms and alike, but same here in Panama, same principle. Also, along this walkway area, there are tons and tons of raccoons, which shows you again, Mother Nature is always trying to remain alive. And the animal kingdom here is prevalent everywhere you go. By the way, funny little detail. I don't know if you guys saw the movie Guardians of the Galaxy. There's like 3 of them. And I read that the reason why they use a raccoon is the only animal that can talk in that movie. And he's supposed to be some sort of experiment, and he's a super intelligent being, some sort of engineer. And the reason why they decided to use a raccoon is because raccoons are the fastest evolving mammal on the face of the earth. And it has to do because their natural environment is always colliding with that of human beings. And we as humans, we're always trying to try for the raccoons not to eat our garbage. So we come up with raccoon-proof garbage cans, and guess what? The raccoons always figure out a way. So because we're pushing them, we're pushing into their territory. We're always forcing them to change. It's actually making them evolve and become much more intelligent. This is the third group of indigenous people. Well, the second one I'm showing you. These are the Nave people. They actually have the biggest territory in Panama, and they are easy to spot because the women wear this very long dresses with this kind of designs and they vary in color. As a photographer, I will advise you, if you see red, chase it. Whenever you see red, it's usually going to make for a good photo. Of course, usual things, new perspective, new angles. I don't know if you've noticed, a lot of the things that I photograph are not shot from eye level, but they're either shot from below or they're shot from above. Because when you shoot from eye level, you're kind of boring the viewer. If you see graffiti, don't just photograph graffiti because you like it. If you do it for the purpose of showcasing the work of a graffiti artist, that's it. But don't call it street photography because you're not doing anything. In order for it to become street photography, you have to wait for the right subject to walk into your photo, so you create kind of a bit of a stakeout, and you wait for the right subject to walk in. In this case, she was the right subject because the colors that she's wearing match the colors of the graffiti and all those things. So you got to pay attention to details. This is again another look at the Casco Antiguo area. Shows you the old and the new. Same thing, just for the purpose of teaching, what you're looking at here is what is known as a wraparound composition, which are compositions that the edges have information that is relevant to the photo, and they make the viewer feel as if they are part of the scene. Wraparound composition. This photo is here because they happen to be my nephew and his fiancée. I did him a favor of photographing the engagement photos. And she's a big social media star, so they've gotten married like 3 times already. I don't quite understand. My wife and I we're just not going to give them any more gifts because it's getting expensive. But the point of the photo here is Panama. There's no way for you to figure out what a Panamanian looks like because we really are such a mixture of different people, different races. We have Europeans, original Europeans. We have the indigenous people. Then when the canal was built, people from all over the world came. So the other day, we had our DNA, our ancestry done. And I am 37% Basque, 22% African with tribes and groups. And then I am in Central American Native. I have 1% Irish and 1% Sephardic Jew. So go figure. When you add it all up, I'm a mutt, and that's what Panamanians are. So if I'm documenting a place, I always want to give you a sense of the people. In a place like Panama, it's very, very hard because there's no such a thing as the typical looking Panamanian. This is a favor I did. The guy on the far right is one of my best friends. He's my childhood friend of mine, and his daughter is the one on the left. And this is the typical Panamanian folk costume, and this is how people in the countryside dress, and it's one of the most beautiful folk costumes in Latin America. So I did a favor. I'm like, this is going to be amazing because I'm going to be able to showcase the typical clothing in Panama while I'm doing a favor to my friends. So whenever the Panamanian beauty pageant representatives from Panama go to pageants, they win awards because of the costumes. Again, great street photography everywhere you go. And again, modern place. We love our dogs. We love our cats, just like everybody else. This is more of a countryside kind of guy. So I'm switching. I'm just showing you the back and forth of the country. We still have street scenes. People sell lottery like this. Even though there's the digital way of buying lottery, people still prefer to go out and physically buy the lottery tickets. And again, this is another example of what different types of groups of people like this is obviously a Panamanian that has heavy influence of African culture, but then she has light eyes. I thought she was so beautiful. And we're about to leave the city of Panama. When you leave the city of Panama, if you have the right lens, this is what you get. This is what you get. That's the causeway. The causeway was built. It's just a spit of land that was built by a lot of the soil that was removed while building the canal to just create a spit of land. And now it's kind of a harbor to protect smaller ships, while the bigger ships are on the other side. They're waiting to cross the canal. This is just Panama Canal watershed vegetation. And with another thing that Panama City has and nowhere else in the world is that we are the only country in the world whose capital has a rainforest within the city limits. It's called Parque Metropolitano. It's about a 15-minute drive from where I am. You park your car and you're hiking in jungles, and it's full of three-toe and two-toe sloths. Amazing. By the way, this is a three-toe sloth, mom and baby, and this is a two-toe sloth. At this point, I finally, I see him, I recognize him without having to look at the claws, but the two-toe sloth have softer features. And this is how rich the green is early morning in the Panama Canal watershed. I spend a lot of time in that area because it's where most of the birds are located. And again, don't ask me which. I know that these are trogons, and I'm going to show you a bunch of trogons because in this area, which is near Gamboa Pipeline Road, where the Ottoman Society they established a world record of the most amount of bird species counted in a 24-hour period. So I hang out a lot in that area. So there are many, many species of trogons. That was one. Here's another one. Here's another one. Again, if you're a birder, I apologize. I know that in the caption I did go and find there, but I don't remember them. I don't remember the names that easily. But they're so easy to spot in the Panamanian jungles. We have macaque monkeys, like this guy's right here. I'm sorry, not macaque, capuchin monkeys, caracaras. They're everywhere. This is a wattle jacana. These guys are amazing. They seem to walk on water. Their feet are adapted. They're very, very long toes and fingers, so they can actually walk on the floating vegetation. We have a plethora of crocodiles. I had no idea how many crocodiles are there in Panama until I started going into bodies of water and people would tell me, be careful because there's a lot of crocodiles. I didn't believe it until I started paying attention. And thankfully, I started paying attention because some of these bad boys can get pretty big. This is one actually, he was actually jumping in the Panama Canal waters. I don't exactly know if they can live in salt water and fresh water, but the Panama Canal basically it's fresh water. So I'm assuming these guys I got to look into that biology of these guys, but big guys in the canal waters. You don't swim in the canal waters. Now, this was a smaller one. I actually caught him as he was about to attack a heron. The heron flew away, and this guy actually went up and went out of the water. Again, we don't get fall colors. That's one thing I miss from being in the States, but we do get every once in a while very few trees. And this is, again, Panama Canal watershed. And like I said, you cannot go anywhere in Panama without encountering insects or birds, mammals. This is one of my favorite photos of these are spider monkeys. A mother spider monkey. You can hear him. You can hear him from afar too. The howler monkeys are here. I don't know if you ever heard a howler monkey, you will never forget that. If you're near howler monkeys, the ground below you reverberates, it vibrates. Saffron finch. I actually know that's a saffron finch because where I live, they're everywhere. They love to hang out in the mangrove area, and they walk on the dry bed during the summer too of the shoreline. So I spent a lot of time chasing those guys around. Skimmer in action. I had to ask a friend tell me what the heck I was looking at. I just thought it was a really cool bird doing funky stuff. Big stork. Don't ask me which stork is. I just know it's a stork. Ibises. We have a couple of different types of ibises here. Tons of them. Now, you just leave the city and you encounter the Embera people. The Embera people are in the Panama Canal watershed. Everything in Panama is nearby. Every time I look at my ways to go from point A to point B, everything is like 3.5 kilometers. That's kilometers, people. It's like nothing in miles. So you go maybe 12 miles out from where I am and you encounter the Embera people. Again, I don't know why this is so small, but They inhabit the Panama Canal watershed and the waters of the Rio Chagres. The Rio Chagres feeds the waters of the Panama Canal. I was with a group of clients giving them a tour of the Chagres River, and this guy was our guide. And to his left, there was a waterfall. So that's why he's got that beautiful light reflected on him. And at first, his body language, I took the photo. I was very disappointed. I'm like, oh man, look at this guy. He's dressed in the traditional garb and he's looking at his phone. Then when I looked at the photo and I looked closer, I realized he was actually looking at, at a leaf. So afterwards, I pulled him and says, hey, what were you doing? I said, my father is a medicine man and he's teaching me to read the jungle. I thought I misheard him, but then he repeated, and that's basically what it is. As he walks around the jungle, he picks up leaves and he tries to remember if they have any medicinal or other uses. So it was a pretty cool encounter. The ringed aracaris, which is of the family of the toucans. This guy's right here. And toucans happen to be some of the most dangerous animals in the jungles. Not to humans, but to anything that fits in their beak. They are omnivorous and they will eat eggs, snakes, insects, frogs, small mammals, anything that fits in the beak, they'll eat them. So now that I know a little bit more about birds and I know how ferocious these guys are, the toucan, what is it? The Fruit Loops toucan, that is a completely made up thing. They're not as sweet as you think. They're beautiful to look and photograph, but they're actually nefarious little critters within their environment. So one day I'm walking with some indigenous people in the Panama Canal watershed, and I noticed the jungle floor, some movement, and I found this aracari. So I told my guide, and he went and picked him up, and he was trembling and shaking. So I asked him, "What happened here?" He's like, "He probably tried to eat something that was poisonous." And I'm like, "Is it going to die?" He's like, "We don't know. We can try to help it." So I don't know. I don't know what ended up. I know that they took it with them. Um, the women, they do these beautiful dances and they use these very, very colorful attires. When I first started hanging out with them, I'm like, come on. When I was a kid, I don't remember you guys wearing those very bright things. And they said they actually have made those part of their attire. And they buy them from Indonesian, Filipino, the fabrics, and they're now involved in the actual design of the fabric. So more power to them. And they wear hibiscus crowns on their heads, just like what you would picture the Polynesian indigenous people that Captain Cook first encountered in his travels. So they look just like that. I visited them during the pandemic, during one of my visits here. And again, they're so they maintain their typical traditional way of living, but they also come to the city. Some of them work, but a lot of them stay living in villages. And again, you can't go wrong when you go photograph them. As a matter of fact, one of the packages that my company has is spending a half a day hanging out in the Panama Canal watershed. That's why I know the area so well, and I know it's so rich for photos. It's incredible how rich it is, and they're allowed to. The laws have grandfathered them because they're original inhabitants, and by original I mean these guys have been in the area for about 80 years. They're originally from the Colombian area of Chocó area, and they just kind of walked their way up to the Panama Canal area. But if you look at your history, Panama used to be part of Colombia. So, the fact that it's now a different country, it doesn't really mean anything to indigenous tribes when they could just walk from point A to point B. That's why. So the point is, as a modern quote unquote person, you can't have a monkey like this as a pet, but because they live in the area, they're indigenous, they're allowed to do so. And they have so much culture and so much they're amazing to just hang out and photograph. I thought it was weird that they had all these coins, and I thought they were only American coins, but then I looked closer, and they are coins from all over the world. And they said that what happens is when the tourists started visiting, and they would give them tips and coins, and the coins sometimes would come from different countries. They had nothing to do with them, so they decided to incorporate them to their attire. So there you go. And from a photographer's point of view, I want you to notice now that I'm actually showing you details. This is a detail that goes with all the other photos, because just like a good book, when you have a character and you give a lot of details, it adds texture to the story. That's what photos of this type add to the overall story. So don't forget to add details. In that same area, you can take a trolley to go up the canopy so you can photograph this kind of things. Another trogon that this thing was just, I actually had a hard time photographing this because this was with my 70-200 at a 70 because this guy was right in front of us at eye level. Gorgeous, gorgeous animal. And this is what you see when you get up there. This is the mouth of the Chagres River. I was telling you, the Chagres River feeds the Gatun Lake, and the Gatun Lake feeds the water of the Panama Canal. Also, the Chagres River and the Gatun Lake provide the drinking water for most Panamanians. I know a lot about this because I proposed a story for National Geographic, and I did research about climate change, scarcity of water, and that kind of stuff. This is another wattle hakana. These are the guys that I tell you basically walk on water. And it's because they have those big feet. I don't know the name of these guys, but they build their nest by ripping pieces of tall grass, elephant grass like this, and they take it back to the nest. This is snail hawk. I know that because of the beak. The beak is designed to actually, they pick up the snails and they stick the beak in, and so they dig out the mollusk out of it. Again, Panama is big on birding, not as big as Costa Rica, but if I have my way, it will be as big as Costa Rica. When I was a kid, every bird that had yellow chest, we call it a yellow-chested bird. Turns out there are about 30 of them. I caught this guy doing twirls, happy that it was raining very far away. So even though it looks like I've applied a filter, that's just because I've blown out the file, but that's how it actually looks. So somebody said, "Oh, did you put the painterly filter?" I don't do any of those filters on myself. I don't do really most post-production. Then you leave the Panama by the oldest bridge. Remember, I was telling you that there are three bridges that cross over the Panama Canal. This is the oldest one, the Bridge of the Americas. And then, the Pacific side of Panama, all the shoreline, a lot of it is volcanic sand. So this is the kind of stuff that you see when you go to the beaches. And a lot of the famous beaches are in that area. The tip of Panama, lower part, it's a lot of surfing going on. It's a surfer's destination. But then you get to the middle of the country, and this is the kind of stuff that you see. It's just bright green. When you start going up the hills, the mountainsides, this actually, if it were not for to me, that's an obvious Panamanian countryside person, and it was actually a woman and her grandkid. But if it were not for them, I would have thought that I was in Southeast Asia because the greens are exactly the same. Again, everywhere I go in Panama, I'm encountering crocodiles. So I was driving. I went somewhere to photograph Corpus Christi celebration, and somebody said, "Oh, they're if you go to the beach, there's a lake and you'll see the crocodiles." Oh my God, crocodiles! I'm there. So there's a sign that said, "Do not go down to the shoreline." So I went down to the shoreline, and I'm squatting down because I'm sure you guys know this. When you photograph animals, you want to be eye level with them whenever possible. So I am squatting down, making this photo. I'm all excited because not only do I have this guy, but I have the one in the back, and I feel movement to my right. And I slowly turned to the right, and there was this massive croc just walking into the water. This thing was maybe about 8 feet away from me. Thankfully, it wasn't hungry. I didn't present a threat. So, moral of the story, pay attention to surroundings when you're doing this kind of stuff. So, again, one of the things that I love the most about my job when I was a photojournalist was document daily life, and I still do it. Whenever I'm doing anything, I'm always looking for unique circumstances like this guy with his little calf. I found a hanging bridge. I took the time to shut off my car and walk. Just I was going to photograph the bridge. I didn't know what was on the other side. And lo and behold, here comes this little girl with a machete that is half her height with his big boots. Great little photo. There's no way for me to have gotten this photo unless I actually took the time to stop the car. So take the time to stop the car when you think you might encounter something interesting. And every once in a while, you have people that hike the rivers. That can be done during the summer. It cannot be done during the winters because the river might look like this, but you might actually have a sudden flash flood because up in the mountains it rained and a dam breaks and all hell breaks loose. There's a lot of orchids and very strange vegetation in Panama. I know nothing of orchids. If you're into orchids, Panama is the place to be because they're everywhere. I did a private for two ladies They came to Panama and they were fascinated. I took them to a botanic garden and they spent a couple of hours teaching me about orchids. I eventually ended up photographing them because, again, anything that is visually appealing, I will photograph, but I know nothing of that. In the middle of the country, there's a couple of Smithsonian research centers. I visited one of them, and I was trying to tell the story that it's a research scientific station. So I asked them to let me borrow one of their animals in a jar, and so brought it outside, put a side light to it just to show you that it's in the middle of the jungle. More orchids. I think these are called ghost orchids or Casper orchids because there's like little ghosts. Um, iguanas. We have iguanas everywhere. Now we're heading to the area near to Costa Rica. So we're about to head into the highlands. If you go there, you have to go through the capital city of the province of Chiriquí, where the highlands is David, and it's very, very hot. And there's a park in the middle of the city that I was visiting because it's full of iguanas and people feed them all the time. And these things have gotten big. So they're awesome to photograph. So when you go up to the highlands, it's a whole different story out there. The light is different, the weather is different. A lot of expats love to live out there because it's so beautiful and the climate is just so nice. It's so nice. And you also have different vegetation. You have massive trees, and this is your quintessential rain cloud forest, different vegetation from the rest of the country. This is the kind of stuff that you see. This is my buddy that I was telling you whom I photographed, his daughter. This is funny enough, this photo is when he got married. Instead of a bachelor's party, he and I, another friend, we decided to do a trek through Panama for a week. So we were hiking. And tomorrow morning, he and I are waking up early to go to an area near the canal that they're planning to flood. And there are about 5 towns that might be flooded if this goes through. So I'm gonna do a story about that. I'm trying to propose it. I don't know to whom yet, but I'm gonna go do it. So this is my hiking buddy. So he shows up in my photos. The reason why I like this photo so much because it shows you what a rain cloud forest looks like. And this is something good for you to remember. Whenever you're in an expansive area of green, if you have red in the photo, it always helps. My friend happened to have had a bandana that was red. There was an infamous photographer for the National Geographic in the 80s who used to carry a red sweater in the trunk of his rental vehicle. Eventually, they said you can't be doing that kind of stuff. So if you see a lot of the photos that this guy produced, there was always somebody wearing a red sweater. You'd be like migrant workers in the middle of a field in California. Somebody wearing a red sweater, of course, because he brought it. But I don't do that kind of stuff. Don't do that. Don't do that kind of stuff. So this is the same people, the Navigable people that live in the mountainous areas of Panama. They're also the area where they raise racehorse. They breed racehorses. It's beautiful up there, and you can visit. I usually visit in the month of February, and they have the foals and the mares, and they allow you to get this close to them. And if you do it right, if you are not a threat to them and you're careful, they let you come right up to them. It's pretty cool. It's a work of wide angle lens. And you get to shoot all sorts of different. I love this little guy. And again, notice how I'm showing you wide angle, telephoto, wide angle. It happens a lot because I want to keep you entertained. I don't want to show you photos that are the same over and over. This area of Panama is also known because this is where the famous coffees are grown, the geisha coffee, which is one of the most expensive coffees in the world. It's grown in this area. However, interesting enough, because of climate change, we're now getting strange micro weather patterns where in the same mountainside, you might have different patches of growth. So you can actually, at any given, this is in one day, you have from seed to fruit, to green, to ripe, to flowers, and ready to be picked up kind of stuff, all happening at the same time. So growing coffee has become a little bit more difficult because before there were the season of harvest. Now, at any given time of the year, there are going to be trees that need to be harvested. But one of the things that you do up in the country, in the highlands, is actually you do coffee tasting, and they're just like wines, I guess, where you have very unique flavors. Some people can get really into it. I don't drink alcohol, nor do I drink coffee, so I wouldn't know. But I can tell you this, it just makes for great photos. Also, there's a again plethora of birds. This is the fiery-throat hummingbird. I had tons of fun photographing these guys in the highlands. I made friends with some guys who have a great set of blinds out there. So if you ever come to Panama, I'd be more than happy to take you up there. This is a emerald brilliant hummingbird, couple of chicks nest. It was pretty cool find. And I think this photo was once more made with my phone. And I think this might be the fiery throat again, the bird of paradise plant. And that, my friends, is a tour of Panama. Please, if you want more information about my company, my Instagram, if you didn't take it, just take a screenshot of this, and this QR code would give it all to you. So thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you giving me the time.
You
I'm gonna
bet.
stop sharing.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one big burning question in the
Yes.
comments. I can't remember who wanted to know, but I think it might have been Carolyn. She wants to know, which phone camera are you using?
I use an iPhone 14.
Okay.
Um, they are really amazing. Phones just keep getting better and better and better and better. It's amazing. I never go anywhere without my phone, even when I have my cameras in my hand. One day I am going to have an exhibit that is going to be all about abstracts, and for some reason they're all done with my phone.
I will tell you this. You were barely into like your seventh or eighth slide, and one of the attendees texted me and said, "When are we going?"
That's awesome. Well, I'm
So,
here. It's my
yeah,
backyard.
it
We
is.
are experts on it, and I'm always exploring. When I'm not working, I'm exploring. Not a bad life. So
Not a
yes,
bad
at the
line.
back of my hand, and I know the best spots to take you. So please, by all means, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Esdras, thank you for doing this. This is like your third presentation for me, and I'm always so excited and just so grateful that you say yes and you haven't blocked me yet. So I appreciate that more than you realize.
Thank you, Linda. It's my pleasure. Man. My pleasure. You are the best.
Well, I'm working on. I'm a work in progress. All right, let me close out this session. And so next week, landscape photographer and overlanding enthusiast Lawrence Lederman will be here to present Conquer the Outdoors, your guide to landscape photography gear, techniques, and adventure prep. Till next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.